Anyhow, Tom Fry and Deb Fry, they're always talking about how intelligent and super special the audience is that comes to these meetings. So I want to just do a real quick thing, and I'm looking for a show of hands. And actually, when you show your hands, you can show your 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 fingers max. And here's what I'd like you to do: is to the question is how many letters in the English alphabet have more than one syllable? No, don't say. Anybody else? One? You did one? Anybody else? One? One. A lot of ones. One. You got the most. But you're doing 5, 3? All right. Now, the truth of it is one.
Depends on where you're from.
Yes. Yeah.
From the choice.
Yeah. Yeah. But anyhow, it's the letter W. And John, because you were the first one to put up your finger with a 1, you get this box, but I'll give it to you a little bit later, okay? And yeah, it's got $50 worth of stuff in it. So, hey, what the heck, what the heck. And the interesting thing about a W is Pat and I, many years ago, on a Clear Channel station, we had a radio show. And the name of the radio show at that time was the World Wide Web Radio Show. Now try to say that 3 times fast. And so anyhow, I started looking for an alternative. And so what I ended up was with W3W3 because the name was available. We chose that only because the worldwide, you heard of the W3 Consortium? They're the people, that's the organization that establishes all the internet and web protocol for the entire world. And so I figured we're twice as good. Okay. Well, anyhow, one of the things I have to say is I fall into traps like that all the time so here we are, w3w3.com. This is after the www. Oh, well, anyhow, it's the way it works. I should have learned over the years, Pat and I, we've been extremely fortunate. We've lived and owned businesses in 5 different countries. We have started up 12 different organizations. And I was one of those people. I think entrepreneurs can be trained. I think they can be, they can learn a lot, and certainly all of them have to be. I just kind of was born into it. Whoa, wow. Those of you who saw me 5 months ago, I was 35 pounds heavier. So, anyhow, I was kind of born into it, and what happened as a young guy, I lived in Wisconsin, and we would either mow lawns or shovel sidewalks to earn extra money. Well, there was a guy who was a friend of our family who lived in the neighborhood, and he was a numismatist. That's a coin collector. And so one day he said, Larry said, let me show you some of my coins. And boy, I thought it was really fascinating. He gave me a list of then pennies that if I found them, that was with a date in the mint mark, if I found them, this is how much he would pay for each one of these. So I had $1, got 2 rolls of pennies, and I got 3 pennies out of those 2 rolls right away that I was able to sell. And I really got excited. So I went out and I started doing more and more of that. And then I realized, I've got 5 buddies in the neighborhood who also mow lawns and shovel sidewalks. So I made a list for them. Just chunked it down a little bit. So I made a little bit on each one, and it was just fabulous. Well, it grew from there. Then I noticed the guy who was buying the coins from me, whether the coin was shiny and crisp or really looked nice or all beat up, he paid me the same price. So I thought, well, I'm starting to pile up a little bit of cash. So I started saving all of the pretty ones, all the ones that were really in good condition, and I sold him the other ones. Worked out just super. Many years later, as I grew up to be, in quotes, a young man, I thought, I would love to open up a coin store and a stamp store, because I did both stamps and coins. So, but I didn't really have the money to open up a store, so what I ended up doing is I went to my bank, the Marine Bank in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and I said, this is what I'd like to do, and I got all these coins, and look how nice and new and shiny they are, and here's a coin book that tells you, and the numismatic knows that would tell you how much you could get get for these? They arranged a $50,000 SBA loan. Yeah, I didn't even know what SBA was, but that was kind of a new thing at that time. And that's really how I kind of got into the whole process. You know, Pat and I think we mentioned the 5 countries. There's Norway, Denmark, Sweden, Australia, and Japan. And we were able to open up and do a number of things. We opened up, in the Scandinavian countries, 32 gift shops and 1 department store. We also had a mail order business, and we did some manufacturing of our own product through an organization that was up in Oslo. And during this time, I came up with this idea that if I came up with one of these little plastic cards, now bear in mind, this is 1971. Little plastic cards, and we'd put their name on it, and we would have this numbering system. And what it was is, John, you'd come up and you'd give us 50, what would be equivalent to $50 US. And if you bought this card, this meant when you went into any one of our stores, the department store or the mail order or the 32 gift shops, you could buy it and you would get a 10% discount. To top it all off, I came up with the idea kind of mainly because there was an opportunity to help people who lived in Copenhagen to go over to Stockholm or Malmo or one of the other country, in another country, and use that card. You know, they paid the money in Denmark, and of course now the laws today, I think, would probably not allow that. Not that it was perfectly legal, and we made millions of dollars with that. It was a fabulous, fabulous program. So, 1971. Yeah, and that's right. Pat just pointed out it was the first debit card in the world. We're not listed yet in Wikipedia, but we will be soon. Yeah, yeah. So not credit card, because I think when they issue credit cards, there should be a warning label like they have on cigarettes. You know. But anyhow, that's another program. All right. So we're going to go through a few slides here, and oh, wait a minute. Oh, it was up there already. Okay. So we're going to be talking about mastering change. Challenges, choices, and champions. And by the way, I personally know a number of the people in this room, and I would definitely classify them as change champions. Now, when it comes to change, here's something I think that's very important for us all to realize. That change is not a single event. It's an ongoing process. And there are many things as we look at change, like, for example, down here at the bottom, I don't know if you can see that. That box and those 3 lines down there represent the past. And we're going to talk about how the past relates to what's going on now, and especially then how it relates to the future. Many people, however, either neglect the past, don't learn from it, and others get caught up in the inertia of the past. In the meantime, we have this arrow going up here, and that's our, in quotes, strategic path. Now, I think the kind of funny thing is that they always draw these arrows either nice and straight or maybe curved a little bit. But the fact is your path is going to be just as wiggly as this little red dot is. Our path is not always consistent or constant. We have many changes, of course, that are happening around us. Many of them are the external changes that we really can't do anything about, or can we? It's just that many people don't take the time to take a look at what are the changes that are going to come our way. We are going to hit on that today or tonight for sure. The other thing is we have our internal changes. I grew up as a young boy in northern Wisconsin, and my father had a peptic ulcer, and so we grew up eating bland on bland. Salt was about the only thing that we ever put on anything. Well, when we moved to the big city of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and by the way, those of you, anybody here from Chicago? Well, that's Milwaukee's largest suburb. Just so that, okay, don't get mad. Anyhow, so when we moved down there, I'll never forget the very first time I went out with a group of kids. We went to a Mexican restaurant. Well, I had never, I didn't even know what Mexican food was. And so I took this bite, and I went in almost shock. I turned bright red, I was sweating, and then because I was so surprised, I went like that, and it went down my throat, and now it's burning on the way down. They thought I was having a heart attack as a high school kid, but the fact is today, I love hot, spicy food. So we can have a lot of internal changes. There's one of the things that we don't do. There's actually 3 things that we don't do on our business internet radio show, W3W3.com, and that is we don't do politics, porn, or pills. The 3 bad P's, we don't do them on our show. Now, there are a lot of changes that are going on right now, and sometimes we get so misguided, so off track, so concerned, and you know what? Start going inward and figuring out what you're going to do regardless of what happens. All right, so it definitely is an ongoing process. This next slide is something that I do. This is if I had a mantra, I guess this is what it's about. People are the cause of all problems, and people are the source of all solutions. We've interviewed so many really neat people over the years, and I can't tell you how often they'll have their little cheat sheet or their notes or whatever, and it'll have some note like, it's all about people. Venture capitalists today, they don't even care, by the way, about your business plan. They don't care about your business plan. That's kind of a myth from the bubble period and before. What they care about is you and your team, and they insist on a team. I haven't met recently a venture capitalist that would invest any money. In fact, this would be true with an angel investor also, with a one-person company. If there isn't somebody there to keep you honest, it can really cause a problem. But anyhow, so on to our next one. We're going to go into what we call, or what I'm calling, the 6 truths about change. And you know what? They are all common sense. I mean, they really are common sense, but it is amazing how uncommon common sense is when we get all caught up with all the different things that are happening. Change is inevitable, and resistance is natural. How many people, now be truthful, just a little show of hands, how many people here really embrace and enjoy change? Could I see your hands? Whoa, okay. Now that's a significant percentage. But you see, that's right. They're startup people. You're entrepreneurs. And entrepreneurs have a tendency to enjoy change. Once they built a big company and they got their thing, they might not like change after that, but the fact is they do like change. According to our studies, we've done this in many different countries, but mostly in the US, but we've done it in Canada and Australia. We've done it in a number of places that are not typically English. But we found that about 24 to 25% of the population has an entrepreneurial bent, and those are the 25% that tend to enjoy change. But it is inevitable and it's natural. Next course thing is that maximize involvement means minimized resistance. Here you are, you've got your team of 3 to 5 to 10 to 25, whatever number of people. Or certainly these large organizations, they come out and they make a decision, here's a change we're going to make, and they hear about it in a Wall Street Journal or in the evening news. Oh, I tell you what, resistance is just automatically built in. Well, I mentioned the 24 to 25% that are a little bit more bent towards change and that type of challenge. About 33 to 35% automatically resist change. I mean, this is just, they don't like it. Now, if you ask them straight out, what is it you don't like about change? Well, basically what you'll hear, if they're going to be straightforward, they're going to say something like, well, we just got to think about it. We don't want to move too fast. Let's gather more data. Hey, things are going okay right now. And there's all kinds of reasons that they will use to resist change. And by the way, if this sounds like I'm picking on those people, no. The fact is, if you build a team, you better get a person who thinks like that, who will challenge your great dreams and all the things that you want to do. If you create losers when you're making change, and we're going to define loser just loosely in a minute, then they may sabotage you. Now, they can sabotage you in many ways. All right, we've gone out and we've decided to make this big change. We're going to do something, and I'm all excited about it. I'm this entrepreneur, and boy, we're going to be leading edge. Not bleeding edge, we're going to be leading edge, and we're going to do all kinds of real nice, neat, wonderful things. Well, but not everybody agrees. There's somebody in the IT department that, frankly, this is going to have a big impact on them and what they do. maybe even going to impact their budget. You've got people in sales and marketing. Now, wait a minute, you mean I now have to, well, that's going to really cost sales, and marketing is going to be bad. And so what happens, people who have that feeling because they were not engaged in the process can sabotage you by either, number one, a real simple low end, not do anything to support the change. Just not do anything. Other people at the other end of the scale, they're mean and vicious. They're saboteurs. They're some folks that might go out of their way to really tube what you're building and what you're working on. Changes must support your mission, vision, and purpose. Now, same old, that's pretty normal. But it is amazing how many organizations, large, medium, and small, will make some kind of a change, and they might be reacting to the market forces or what the competition is doing, maybe some new laws and regulations. And not that they shouldn't, but they don't always make a change that is going to be supportive of what you do. For example, on W3W3, and this is a minor thing, but we're a Colorado-based organization. And we've been in business since 1998. We've interviewed all kinds of people. We've interviewed people from all over the world. Last week we interviewed somebody in Chicago. A couple weeks before that, somebody who was in England. But in all cases, we insist that they must have a Colorado connection because we're Colorado focused. Now, we might, down the road, as we set up some additional relative stations in other areas, but we will still have our Colorado base. It'd be like having a network where somebody in Chicago, for example, you guys are looking for, no, you got something, that's right. But once again, make sure it does support your vision, mission, and purpose. All right, lack of communication and the benefits, and the lack of explaining what the benefits are, will cause resistance. You see, you're all excited about it, you know. And you know how good it's going to be. You know it's going to impact our bottom line. Our customers and clients are going to be happy. And what we do is we just automatically assume that the people on our team, the people we're working with, understand that. No. You have to explain those benefits. They have to be able to relate it to themselves internally and see how it will impact their future, their people relationships, and their security, without question. And then last but not least, change requires more and more intensive follow-up. I tell you, absolutely. Now here's what I'm saying, is if you do not follow up a week later, a month later, maybe 10 days later, a number of different times after change has been implemented, where you ask them questions, you give them more clarity, you reinforce the benefits, make sure that you continue that process until it becomes a part of the culture. And now people have really totally bought into it. In the meantime, at best, they've only bought into it partially. All right, so those are our 6 truths about change. I'm going to switch gears, but I'm going to marry the two, hopefully a little bit. Oh, can you imagine that again? People are the cause of all problems, and people are the source of all solutions. Those 6 truths that we went through all revolve around people. We all know that. And this is something that I'm going to hopefully in this little next process give us a little bit of explanation of how we can work with that. You see the groundswell of several sweeping changes? Well, we're going to take a look at that. And I already asked how many of you like change. Do you still? Nobody's hand went up? Oh, one hand. Okay, I was only kidding. All right. Now, this first one that we're going to get into is really, we're going to talk about 5. I'll let you know that ahead of time. 5 groundswells of change. But let me see if I can somewhat define that. A groundswell is something that grows in power and in nature. It's not that it is all-consuming, but it's generally focused within a particular area, but as it grows, it expands also into other areas. It relates specifically, like that diagram with the arrow at the beginning, it relates to the past. All 5 of these have already started. They're already impacting us from the past. Some 3, 5, 10, and maybe even more years ago. one of the interesting ones, I think it's the next one I'm going to talk about, has been going on for 100 years. But it is just in recent times that there's been this groundswell. Now, here's what I'd like to see if I could point out. One of the most common things that small to medium-sized businesses do, don't worry, the big ones do it too, is they get focused on their particular sector, their industry, their product, their service. And so if they are in any way beginning to look at down the road what is exactly happening, they just stick in that fine, narrow path. And they look just at that. Well, you've got to go outside of those bounds. You have to look at other things that maybe are not sector related. Because I'm telling you, a groundswell of change will impact you, your family, your community, your organization, the country, the entire world in many different ways. So we're talking about major elements. Now, I had an interesting experience this past week. You know, I've interviewed now thousands of people. And somebody turned the tables on me just recently. These two, Greg and Yvonne Leinert. Yeah, they were kind of excited about the Mastering Change book. They were excited about this groundswell thing, says, Larry, could we interview you? And I tell you what, I was so nervous, it was incredible. The only major editing that's going to have to be done is me. But it was really, like I say, really switching the tables, and it was really, and thank you for that process. So let's take a look at our first one. Greening is becoming strategic, sustainable, and scalable. Now, it is amazing how many people take a strong position, one side or the other. There are a number of people in between that maybe don't know a lot about it. They've heard about different things. They've heard conflicting stories. They've seen two sides debate about how important it absolutely is, or our kids will be dead before they're 12 years old. Or to the other extreme, that all this is a bunch of, well, you know. Now, the truth of it is, the greening industry is growing. It has been growing for some time. I can remember 3-4 years ago, I was in I go to a lot of meetings, most of you know that, and I was in this meeting that was a green industry type, and they were sitting there or standing there talking about, that how important this is. And what they were doing is they were drawing a line, not in the sand, but in the granite, that unless you think like we do in all areas, you ain't going to get in the green thing. And of course, in the meantime, there are enough people over here that help support that feeling, and the other people over here. And so we had two sets of radicals that were debating. You know what? The debate's over. No, what we do exactly is very important. We have to take things that if we're going to start doing green things, it doesn't have to be all overnight. A friend of mine had something printed a few months ago, and it was all in recycled paper. Well, one of these people who feels very strong about that, he says, well, did you use soy ink? No, he didn't. Either didn't know about it or couldn't get it done or whatever it was. And so all of a sudden there was natural resistance. It all boils back to people. And if you offend somebody inadvertently because you think you're standing up for your issue, now you've got somebody who's going to sabotage you. So it is extremely important that we all take a look at what we can do, what's our part. And you know what's neat about it is today, finally, after so many years, finally you can actually make it profitable. And it's okay. By the way, it is okay to be good and to make money. We're going to talk more about that in just a moment. But this is certainly a groundswell of change that's going to affect us. You notice over there to the right where it says health food? A groundswell begins to capture and impact all kinds of other areas. Now, I never would have guessed that health food and yoga would be any part of the greening thing. It is. Pat and I were at an event Saturday, and it was sponsored and held by Boulder's Best Organics. Now, what they're doing is they handle and market only products that are made in Boulder and are organic. And they've got quite an interesting pitch, them and their vendors, about how healthy and good, in short and long term, it is to go organic. Now, they're limited to Boulder. They sell products in a number of different places, from biggies like Rudy's Bakery to White Wave and just a number of others, and a number of other small startups. What I see happening is you're going to see other communities do the same thing. So between supporting your local grower, your local manufacturer, you're also saving carbon footprints, which is another debate, and all kinds of things. This box, by the way, John, is from them. So this is going to be for you. I'll have it for you when we get done. You got a place for it?
I'll get it.
Oh, you won't let me get away. Okay, all right. So you're beginning to see more and more areas that are going to be related to and a part of the green movement. Now, don't be afraid to do a little. Don't be afraid to be honest with somebody, but have good, reasonable conversations. All right, the next one is giving back to the community and giving of ourselves. Now, we're fortunate enough, one of the guests here tonight, Chris Pelly, I'm looking for this headline, Chris. And if you don't, could I get you to say a few words too? It started with the fact over the years that people would donate money, which let's hope they continue to do that. And you know what? That's wonderful, but today there's a couple of challenges. One is there's so much competition for nonprofits out there and associations and organizations to raise money that it's really tough. And all of a sudden you're finding some of these organizations not only not cooperating with other organizations, but they look at them as competitors. I mean, real competitors. So now there's a drying up of that cooperation, potential drying up of some of the money that's been available because there are so many and they're now spread out thin. Bet you could call 10 organizations that typically raise money, and this is the past 2-3 years have been pretty tough. The same amount of money is being given out, but it's spread out so far. Now, in the meantime, there's another phenomenon that is really, whoops, oh yeah, sorry. And something that Pat and I have become so excited about. And you see that bottom set of words there says social entrepreneurship. Does anybody know what that means? Couple? Over here too? All right, back there, Dan the man. Well, here's a headline. And then, Chris, if I could get you to say a few words about an organization that I have just begun to fall in love with. But the headline in this says, Colorado, the new thought leader in social entrepreneurship. It's a way you can give back to your community and get something in return and not feel bad or guilty about it. So, Chris.
Thanks, Larry. Wasn't quite certain what the words would be, but I'll flow with the change issue. How many business people in here? You're business entrepreneurs and the whole notion of social entrepreneurship. So I own a company, and I've done that for about 30 years. But what's happened is that they say that young people around the world today are more interested in a career with meaning than making money. I haven't quite figured that out yet, but I was motivated by our daughters who are now 20, 25 to introduce them to some of these themes about social entrepreneurship. So it's social justice with business principles. And to be brief about it, turn it back to Larry because he's helped us within the Colorado community. One of the leading social entrepreneurship organizations in the world is a company called Ashoka. And Ashoka is the name of a 3rd century BC Asian Indian emperor who conquered and would vanquish, and then he evolved and moved into Buddhism, and then he would conquer and show compassion. And they chose that name. Bill Drayton founded Ashoka in 1980, and it's interesting that academics know about it, social activists know about it, but most business people don't unless they happen to be billionaires. So Ashoka is being funded by the people from Google and eBay, and the leading social entrepreneur through Ashoka's name is Muhammad Yunus. He won the Nobel Prize, Grameen Bank, microfinance in Bangladesh. And here's the three components. And by the way, the motto for Ashoka is be the change maker.
Yeah.
Make the change. And they have three key variables to be a social entrepreneur. Number one, be creative. No matter how obscure or insane as it seems, if you think there's a problem you can solve, go do it. Number two, use business metrics, as at McKinsey. Bill Drayton is a Harvard undergrad, Yale Law, Bailey College, Oxford grad. They worked with McKinsey for a decade, so they want better business metrics. And finally, sustainability. Well, Grameen Bank, microfinance, Grameen Phone, they make a lot of money. And part of the challenge to you entrepreneurs is you might just find a way to solve problems and earn a living. And I think Ben Franklin talked about that, do well by doing good, but fast forwarding, the idea now there's a new book out called Encore. And the idea is, from the age of 1 to 30, you learn how to maybe read a book, wipe your nose, kiss a girl. From age 30 to 60, you better learn how to earn a living. But from 60 to 90, what are people going to do? And they see a real groundswell of interest in this area called social entrepreneurship.
Yeah, by the way, and you don't have to wait till 60. But what's very interesting, Ashoka is a fabulous organization. We'll make sure that we put up a link to their website on our homepage. Earlier today, I interviewed a woman named Jessica from kiva.org. And what she does, or her organization does, is they give microloans. A microloan could be for $100, $250, and more often than not in third world countries. And she's done an absolutely fantastic job, and we'll have her interview up in a week or so because there's a lot of material that we also want to link to it. You two guys are also in some organization that does microloans. What's it called? Unitas. Okay, we'll make sure we get that link up there too. But this is some of the types of things you're saying. I'd like to finish this off, this part, by just sharing one other quick story. There's a guy down in, that, by the way, I met because of Chris, named Steve Biggery. And Steve owns a number of McDonald's franchises. So he's made a lot of money. He's done very, very well. I don't know how he, in quotes, stumbled into this or how he figured it out, but he found that many of his employees, of course, if they can only get a job at McDonald's, you can imagine how not well off they might be. He would give them personally a loan from the company for them to buy an automobile. And then he found that those that were getting an automobile missed a lot less work, were better on the job, had a much better attitude, and some of them started, like becoming a manager and other things on the job. So what he did is he took money, gave it to them, and he got something back in return. It was also a loan. And I tell you what, you're going to find more and more organizations, big and small, that are starting to do things where they can give of themselves and get something in return and not feel guilty about it. Ashoka is just one of those prime organizations. All right, next one on our list is, get that headline? Entrepreneurial wave grows at the wake of company closures. Google was started during a rough economic time. There are many, many huge and good-sized organizations that started during tough economic times. I've interviewed recently a number of venture capitalists, Brad Feld and a number of others, and they all said, without a doubt, no coaching from me, of course, and that is, tough economic times right now is a time when many of your organizations and entrepreneurs will start their businesses. And not all of them, but many of them will do well. I interviewed Tom Fry. When was it, Tom? Just last week sometime. And Tom mentioned during this interview, and I'd heard a figure like this before, that out of every 7 employees that get laid off or fired or lose their job for whatever the reason, 1 out of every 7 start a new company or start their own company, entrepreneurial. Did I get that figure right? And I tell you, it's really, really phenomenal. And by the way, Tom, the interview, of course, we actually did 2 interviews, didn't we? And one is up on our homepage right now. It's the effort of the trademark office. Just share a quick on it.
We did a couple quick interviews. One of them was about the effort we've been undertaking to bring a division of the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office to Colorado, and how that's gone through different transitions along the way. A couple of years back, the governor's office asked me to head up a task force to bring a division of the Patent Office to Colorado. We set up this task force. We actually invited the Commissioner of Patents out here. He was out here on 2 different occasions so far. And we've had a lot of correspondence back and forth. And they keep changing their business model and what they're planning on doing. They are, because of sheer demand, they keep hiring more and more people. The Patent Office has never expanded out of Washington, D.C., so this is kind of new ground for them. So we had a discussion on that. Yeah. And then the other topic we talked about was, the future of retail, which is going to pose lots of interesting new changes on the world. Just to fill in on a quick story while Larry's getting rewired here. Deb and I were at a restaurant a few weeks back, and we were sitting out there at this restaurant, and we could hear music playing from speakers kind of around the sidewalks there. And one song that was playing, I said, wow, I really like that song. I wonder what it is. So I pulled out my iPhone, and there's this program you can use called Shazam. What it does is it listens to the song. So I found out what the song was, and found out it was a Nina Gordon song, but more than that, I decided to purchase the song on my iPhone right there. And this transaction really rang a chord with me because it was so different. I didn't have to go into a store to make this purchase. I didn't have to go onto a website to make this purchase. I just purchased it from my phone where I happened to be. So the thought occurred to me that in the future we're going to be able to just point our phone at things and say, oh, I like the jacket that person is wearing. We'll get a selection of jackets showing up on the screen. We'll make our selection. We can purchase them right there. And it's not just going to be clothing. I mean, we're going to have people walking by, oh, I like that appliance, like this toaster or this blender. You point and click and make the purchase. So that was some of our discussion. And so if you want to hear the whole topic, just listen to whatever's shown.
www.com. Yeah. And it's kind of a bridge between these. Steve, what's my timing like? Oh, I'm down to 0? Okay. I'm fine. Change. Just as kind of a bridge between that last topic of giving ourselves as well as what's happening here in social entrepreneurship. When I told you when I was a young boy with my coin collection, but something I didn't tell you before that, I had polio. And I couldn't walk for over a year. It was very painful. And as I was laying there, this was right after actually the day that I found out that I had polio, and I was all worried, and my mother's crying, and now I'm kind of alone in the bedroom. I couldn't even sit up or anything. And I made a promise that if you pull me through this, I will build you a school. Well, as time went along, as I mentioned, I couldn't walk for over a year, I found that every time I thought about the school, the pain would go away. And I tell you what, did that make me think about the school a lot or what? And we realized that we need to have the school on a farm where the children can grow things and they can understand that not everything comes at a click of the finger. and sometimes even then it's a challenge. They also were going to be responsible for selling what they're growing. They will also be making things that they're growing. And another element, of course, is we want to keep it high-tech along with everyday world, the commercial side, and the other world too. But in addition, we want to help tap into what I think is it's a lost resource almost, and that is we got to tap into the elderly, because we're going to bring the retired folks in, and they will do some of the teaching. Google or not, we're going to lose an awful lot unless we have some of that being passed on. The Indians have done it for years, and this is something that we want to do within our school. One of the things that I think is so important, along with social entrepreneurship, as well as the building a business in the wake of all these tragedies and problems that are going on, and that is my mother-in-law. For years, whenever we would see her, and this was a constant, she would open up her purse real slowly, and she would peel out a $5 bill and slap it on me and say, "Here, go buy the kids a present." And I said, no. I mean, first of all, she had, her husband had passed away some time ago. She didn't really have retirement money, barely eking it by on Social Security. And so I would just say, no way. Just keep it. One day, I woke up when I was writing some paper or program or something, and I realized that, wow, I'm not playing one of the rules, one of the games that I always have played, and that I teach in my courses and seminars. And that is, people like to give of themselves and to get something in return. So I couldn't wait for the next time to see her. And so when she peeled out that $5 bill and slapped it on me, I grabbed it and I said, "Thanks, Mom. I know exactly what I'm going to get the kids." Of course, I know later on that day or the next day, while she was having coffee with some of the other folks in the building, sitting there drinking a coffee with her little finger up, saying, "You know what? My kids are still leeching off of me." People want to give of themselves. All right, so very quickly here, communication and the social media at warp speed. Whoa, the Lynotts really talked about that. And I tell you what, it's so, this is a thing that we are wrestling with W3W3. We've got, over 12,000 people on our weekly newsletter list, and I hope some of you might join that too, and 75,000 visitors. And so we've got a lot of good traffic, but our traffic are people who are business people, because we only talk about business stuff. I would guess, I don't know this for sure, but I would guess most of them are probably over 40, certainly over 35. And we don't quite have the young audience, those that have just grown up to Twitter in their sleep, or that they got their Facebook? No. Well, Facebook and YouTube and all these other things. And Pat and I, we realized we have to do something. We don't want to drive away those people that are still afraid and nauseous about looking at these types of things. But we have to also encourage our audience, because if we're going to build our school, we need to be able to sell our business in 3 to 5 years so that we can do that. Boy, and if we don't get the young people in, so we're taking a look at how we can get more of the young people in who are are much sharper than we are, and then they can grow the business. So when you look at change, you have to look at what are some of the inevitable things coming down the pike. In the social media, how many of you do something either with LinkedIn or Twitter or, oh, well, this is better than half. That's probably about 2/3. Excellent. Well, you got to look into it. Take your time. I don't know how some of these people spend so much time doing all this stuff. But Brad Feld, a very popular venture capitalist here based out of Boulder, if you want to find out about all of the things from Legit and Medium and some of the other ones that maybe you have not heard of, go to feld.com. That's Brad Feld's blog, and there's tons of valuable links. Okay. And then, this is one of my pets. Know me for who I am. Don't know me as an Xer, Yer, Zer, or a baby boomer. I want to be known for me. the little comment there where it says Amazon. Do you know that Amazon.com knows many people better than the people that they work with on a team day to day? They, you know, their likes, and it's all done electronically, obviously. But I think, isn't that a pretty sad case? So we have to begin to figure out and study really what is it that is different about people. So a number of years ago, I came up with a thing, and it was really a self-help thing. It was only for me. As it turned out, we then began to sell this material and programs and conduct seminars based on it, and it's called the 3 Filters Technology. And it's really cool. Well, a colleague of mine named Steve Willey, oh, Steve, you're here, yes. Steve, he's a techie, he's a professional photographer. He started drilling me about all this stuff, you know, why and stuff, and he scored this instrument that I have online, and I certainly would love to invite any one of you if you wanted. It's free, and we don't share it. It's just, but we've now done over 50,000 people from all parts of the world, and he got into this, and he all of a sudden, well, Steve, would you mind telling him?
Yeah, I gave a speech at a professional association about a year and a half ago. Larry sent me an email saying, hey, we're in the same kind of business and similar ideas. You ought to check out my website. It's called 3 Filters. And at first, I wasn't real impressed because, you know, it's just one more theory and a lot of stuff. But I called Larry and asked him a lot of questions, and I got more and more into it. Wrote a white paper on 3 filters because it fascinated me about a year ago. And then this past April, I said, I need to turn it into a book. So Larry and I are authors of a new book called 3 Filters. And what it is sort of an additive process. I asked Larry why 3, and he said, well, it's better than 2. And what he said is, let me come up here.
Yeah.
If you look at the world through rose-colored glasses, see this little red area right here? That's all you see. It's red. Even though it's accurate. You see the person there, it's accurate, but it's tinted. It's not right. But if you take off the red and look at green, it's still accurate, but it's still incomplete. If you switch back and forth, you're back to red and green and some yellow. But if you add blue, the 3rd filter, suddenly you have natural color like you see in the center. And what Larry told me is that it isn't good enough to have either or. Find that 3rd element, whatever it is. He talked about the future, he talked about people, and he talked about security, and it just flows so smoothly. You put it in your advertising, you put it in your life, you put it in leadership, and it's that 3rd element. And this whole book goes into looking at everything from 3 perspectives instead of 1 or 2. And it got to be a lot of fun to write the book. I wrote about conflict and about entrepreneurship versus leadership versus management, 3 different disciplines. They all come together and converge in the center. And it's been a lot of fun. I got to know Larry a little bit better. And we do have our book back here. I'm not going to try to sell it, but if you put $10 in the envelope there and take a book, you're welcome to it. And Larry will even sign it. I'll sign it for you. Did that summarize what you said?
I think it summarized it just great.
Okay, thank you.
All right, quickly, how many filters? Well, did you say 3?
Yeah.
I can't count you. Mike, he designs all of our artwork. We work together. We each have our own companies, our logos, our new book cover, and I don't know, some of you have our business card and all this type of thing, so I can't count you. It was one of you 2 guys that said it next. No? Okay. Because what I wanted to do was to give away a book. And what a better, think about this. The inventor, McGregor. Okay, I said it right to myself. Okay. I tell you, I think we ought to consider maybe having some type of a, if not a boot camp, some kind of a meeting where we have parents and grandparents of small children who have that inventor bent. It might be a very fun meeting. Anyhow, okay. All right, and then finishing up, remember, it is definitely all about people. And on our website, or if you just send me an email to larry@w3w3.com, I'll send you a free invitation. It's a really cool instrument to fill out. And once again, my favorite couple of sentences. Now, which is your winning role? That's the thing that I would like to help encourage you get to a point where, you see, while we have these three filters, like Steve said, our future filter, that's where we're going, where we're headed, and our goals, and the pioneer and the entrepreneurial spirit. And then at the other end, we have our security, that's both physical and financial security, and playing it safe and making slower decisions. And then our other filter is about people and our relationships and our teams and belonging and being a part and giving of ourselves. We have all three, but we each have a tendency to favor one, or what I call a filter bias. We favor one filter, and we use that most of the time. And that's why on that book cover that Steve pointed out, if it's too much one way, it's going to be blue, and a lot of the stuff's going to be blacked out. But if you tap into all three filters, that expression you have in there, spinning them, I think is really cool. Well, in addition to our three filters, you know, it's amazing. We have our normal persona. We have how we tend to be on a team or a group. This could be at a management association. This could be your team on the job. In addition to that, how you are on the job. And so these 9 roles, once you score that LPI, you will know which role is the one that is the natural you. And what's really cool about this, you get a complete report that talks about all these different, the filters and the roles and so on. To me, here's what we found, and I didn't go into this thinking this way. Yes, a number of people were very happy to have point out to them that, you know, it's this is a weakness of mine. I'm not real good. I'm not a good communicator, or I'm not a good protector. I'm a producer, but I'm not a good manager. And what we then found out in the process was this, is that many people found out what they were good at, and they didn't know it. And until you know that, you're not apt to capitalize on that strength. Each one of us has some strengths that probably are not tapped into. So I'd encourage you to do that. Larry at w3w3.com. That's the back of the business card that you picked up. And hope you get to tap into that, the Colorful Leadership book. And then it's all about people. I'll finish with one story. My wife's going to beat me up when I tell this one, because she's heard it 1,000 times in 5, 6 different countries. And that's the story about a little blonde girl who's running down the street. She comes up to a store where a man is just putting in a window display. And in this window display, a beautiful blue necklace. And her eyes pop wide open. She rushes off in the store. She says, Mister, can I see that set of blue beads? And said, yes, certainly, and showed it to him. And she said, you know, it's my sister's birthday tomorrow. Could I buy him for her? And he had bought this necklace for his fiancée, who was killed in an automobile accident, which is why he had never sold them. And he said, yes, you can have them. And so he went to, she said, could you wrap it up as a birthday gift? And he went to the back room to wrap it. Meantime, she pulled out a little doily hanky, opened it up, and there were 2 pennies, a nickel, and a dime. Places it on the counter. He comes in and says, here. And she says, is this okay? And he took the 17 cents and he says, that will be just perfect. And she went running out the door. 2 days later, in walks a tall blonde woman with this powder blue package. It's all wrapped with that white ribbon and bow. And she says, Mister, can you tell me if this came from your store? And he says, why, yes. In fact, your little sister was in here a couple of days ago, bought it for your birthday. Hope you like it. And then she says, well, I know my sister's never had more than $1 at any one time in her whole life. She says, there's no way she could have possibly paid for it. He said, no, she did. She paid for it in full because she gave me everything she had. As an entrepreneur, that's what it takes, the persistence, the patience, and the passion. Oh, those are the 3 good P's. Thanks. Thank you.